Alright, so now that we have a page on which we will be displaying the content, we just need to create a Notion page from which we are going to consume the data. So for that thing, let's first get to the Notion website and make sure to log in. After which you will be within the application, kind of obvious. So on the left side, we have a button to create a page. Let's click on that. And now let's give it a name. So eventually we will be using the same name over here. So let's name it as single page links. And below this, we will be adding in a single block. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that these right over here, these are referred as block, and we will be using the normal one, which is the text. So over here, let's add in a single link. And using the inbuilt feature of adding in a link, or to say a URL to a text, for which we just need to highlight the text, we can add in the link. Let's do that in such a way. So the other thing, are you kidding me? The other thing to keep in mind is that make sure that there are no blank blocks, which means that in case you click below the link, it's going to automatically add the block. So make sure that you don't have it by just deleting it using the delete key. So now that we have a page which we will be using as the data source, let's get to the integration part. So on the left side, we have settings and members. Let's click on this thing. And over here, the last button, which is the integration, let's click on that. And now we are going to create a new one. So for that thing, let's click on the develop your own integrations and let's create one. So over here, let's click on this button, I think like this button, and let's give it a name. So we can name it as my links or whatever you want. And is it required for us to add in a logo? Let's actually submit this thing. Okay, it's fine. We don't really have to add any logo, so that's fine. And now that we have an integration, it will allow us to communicate with any page or any workspace. So over here, we are given the secret key, which we need in order to make the request. So let's click on that thing and let's copy it to the clipboard. So as we need this thing, while making the request, let's actually copy and add this thing as an environment variable to our project. So for that, let's get back to the project, and on the root level of our application, let's create a new file. So over here, let's name it as .env, within which we will be placing all the environment variables. So let's name it as Notion _secret, only if I could spell it right. And let's set this thing as the value. Now after the series, I will be deleting the integration, so don't waste your time copying the same thing. So below this, let's also add one another thing. So this secret key is used to communicate with the Notion. However, as you know that within your workspace or like within the Notion application, there are certain things like you can have different databases, different pages, and the other things. So in order to specifically target or to consume the data out of this page that we have, we need to get the page ID, and you can get that by using the URL that we have over here. So the last segment of the URL is the page ID. So after the single page links, which is within the URL, which is actually the page name, there we have this thing, the last segment, which is the page ID. So make sure to copy this thing, and let's get back over here and save it as a variable. So we can name it as links page ID, and let's set this thing as the value. And now because we have added two environment variables, we need to restart our server. Let's do that. npm run dev, which will start up the server again. So now that we have these two things which will allow us to communicate with the page, there is one last thing that we need to do. So getting back to the page, right over here we have a button which says share. So using this thing, it pops open this window where we have a button which says that add people, emails, groups, or integration, and that's what we need to do. So let's click on this thing, and there we have the integration. Let's select this thing and let's click on invite. So if we do that, now we can access this page using the Notion secret that we have, because now it's included within the scope. So now we can get to the part of making request to this page using the API. So for that thing, there is a way to use the API using the REST API in a normal way. However, the much more suggested way to say is to use the Notion SDK for JavaScript. So we are going to use this client in order to communicate with our Notion workspaces and stuff. And for that thing, we just need to install this package. Let's do that. So getting back over here, you can do npm install and the package name. So I've already done this as I have the package installed right over here, and it will take a couple of seconds. It's quite big. So after you have it installed, you can continue with this thing. So right over here, let's import the client out of this package, the Notion HQ/client. Now the thing which we want to import is the client, and make sure that it is a named import. It is not a default one, so make sure to wrap it inside of curly braces. After you do that, now we just need to use this thing in order to consume the data out of this page that we have over here. So let's actually do that in the next video.